Hi friends, today's lesson is about dot plots. Dot plots show the shape of a data set by representing each data point as a dot over its corresponding value on a number line. So the data set, when I talk about data set, those are the values in the data set, and they must be numeric to be able to be displayed on a dot plot. We start our dot plots out with number lines. So in order for data to be displayed on a dot plot, it must be numeric. The scale is made up of the number line and its unit labels. So right here we have a set of data for my friend's siblings. So I asked all my friends how many siblings they had, and these were their answers. So we want to create our scale, which is our number line, which I've drawn here, and then we're going to label it. Some have 0, 1, 2, oops, move that over a little bit, 3, 4, 5, and I think my highest answer was a 6. Okay, so this is our scale. It includes the number line as well as the labels. The dots each dot represents one value in the data set. And so each of these values would be represented as a dot on my scale. And then the frequency describes how often a data value occurs. So for instance, I could quickly doesn't want to draw dots. I'm going to use X's because my pen, every time I draw a dot, it wants to do something funky. So I'm going to get rid of this. And we put a X or a dot for each of the pieces of data that we've collected. And when we have something that we've already seen once, we just put another X above. So this is what my dot plot would look like for the data that I've collected as far as how many siblings my friends have. So really quick, we can see that 2 of my friends have 0 siblings. 2 of my friends have 1 sibling. 4 of my friends have 2 siblings. 2 of my friends have 3 siblings. 1 has 4 siblings. I don't have any friends that have 5 siblings. And I have 1 friend that has 6 siblings. So this is really fast, just a quick explanation of dot plots. Okay. Couple other things to keep in mind. Dot plots, we can analyze the dot plots once we have an actual dot plot, which we've got here. These are the ages of cats at a local shelter. We can talk about different things such as the distribution, how the data is spread out over the possible values. So we've got our distribution shown here on our dot plot. We've got, we can use different words to talk about how this just these data points are spread. So we do have some clusters. That's an area where most of the dots are stacked. So we've got a cluster right here, lots of cats that are 2 and 3 years old. We've got another cluster right here. Some of the cats, several of them are 6 and 7 years old. And then we also have what we call gaps. And these are areas where the numbers are much smaller. So we have a gap here. We only have 1 cat that's a year old. We've got a gap here, and we've got a gap over here. We don't have as many older cats. And then we have values that stray. Values that stray are dots that are located far away from the main set of data. So most of our data is right here on our dot plot, and then we've got this sky down here. That is a value that strays. Another word for that would be called an outlier, and we'll talk about more about outliers when we do box plots. But this 1 cat that's 12 years old, that's pretty unusual compared to the rest of the cats in the shelter. So that's a value that strays. So let's go back and talk about how to create dot plots, because I'm going to have you create a dot plot from the information that we get from our coin flipping videos. So let me show you how that works. So I have this information here. 15 customers in a pizza shop were asked how many toppings did you add to your cheese pizza, and the responses are shown here. Okay, so we can do this in a couple different ways. We can go through and collect our data in a table. So I've got a table right here, and I'm going to create tally marks for each of my toppings so that I can then make this into a dot plot. So I can say, okay, I've got 1, so I'm going to put a hash or a tally mark there. Then the next person said they used 2, and then back to 1, marking off the results as I record them on my table. So I'm staying very organized here. Every time I mark off a topping, I record it down in the table. Okay, so let me just finish this really quick. All right, so I've organized all of the responses, all of the data that was given up here in my response chart. So down here I created a table, so I've got all the numbers of toppings, 0, 1, 2, and 3 were possible answers, and then I've put tally marks on the frequency as I was reading the numbers from the top. I was marking them here on the bottom, and of course every time we make 4, we put a line across, just like I did with the 1 to show that it's a group of 5. Then I can go ahead and create my dot plot based on my results from my table. So I'm going to create my number line. I've got 0, 1, 2, and 3 as possible answers, so I'm going to put those labels down here. In the dot plot, you're going to create for me with the number of heads. We would want to put labels down on our number line from 0 to 10. So those are all the possible answers that students could have for the number of tails that they flipped in 10 coin tosses. They could flip 0, 1, 2, 3, and so forth, all the way up to 10 tails. So that's what you will have on your number line. And then we would just take our tally marks that we had here and mark them on our dot plot, X's or dots, whatever. I've got 4 zeros, I've got 5 people that answered 1, 4 of the 2s, and then 2 of the 3s. So this is kind of a mess, but you get the idea. Now, another thing I could do is, instead of creating a table, you don't have to create a table. If you can stay organized, I can just go ahead and draw my dot plot. Look up here at my pizza toppings data, and I know that people either answered 0 toppings, and the most toppings that they answered was 3, and then I'm just going to create my labels in between. And then, if I can stay organized, I can go ahead and put my dot plot information on my dot plot instead of creating a table over here with the frequencies like I did on the last slide. I can just go ahead and put the information right on my dot plot. So I have one person who answered 1, so I'm going to put an X above the 1. Someone said 2, and I've got a 1. Here's a 3, and so forth. So you can see how you can create a dot plot directly from the data if you can stay organized and remember to cross off each piece of data as you're adding it to your dot plot. Nothing wrong with creating a table ahead of time and then making your dot plot from that. That's a great way to stay organized, but you can do it this way too if you think you can go right from your data to the dot plot. So that's how we create dot plots. You're going to want to label this. This is number of pizza toppings. So you can put your label at the bottom, or you can put it across the top. I didn't have room at the top, so that's why I didn't do that. but you want to make sure this is neat and that it's readable. This is probably a little too messy for turning into me through Google Classroom, but forgive me because I have limited room on my whiteboard here. But this is the kind of thing that I'm looking for your dot plot project assignment. So if you have any questions, send me an email.